Father O'Callahan wrote a book about Franklin entitled I Was Chaplain of the Franklin. Along in the latter part of it, he stated that I was not a very religious man. Well, I never made any great show of being religious, but neither was I irreligious. And at one point, when I was in the pilot house, at the worst part of the explosions, and when we were smothered in smoke, I could feel within myself a sort of a fear rising. And everybody gets afraid under these conditions. The thing to do is you don't show it, and you have to keep on doing what you've got to do. And I think I closed my eyes for a minute, and a very strange thing happened to me. Somewhere inside my head, I seemed to hear a voice in a very, almost a clear, bell-like tone, started to recite a part of the 23rd Psalm. And I stood there for this moment and heard the lovely words of this psalm. And then, all of a sudden, I knew everything was going to be all right.
Soon the Franklin was making normal speed. At Pearl Harbor, it was found that the tough warrior had not sprung a single plate in her hull. But the interior damage was too great for Pearl Harbor to cope with, and she was ordered home. 704 officers and men took her all the way to New York, the ship that few had expected would ever get away from Japan.
All that long voyage home, from the place we were hit to Ulithi, to Pearl Harbor, to Panama, to New York, I think the crew must have thought I was some kind of a Simon Legree, because I worked the officers and men from sunup till sundown. The purpose was to keep those men busy. They'd seen a great many of their shipmates die or be burned or blown over the side. And I knew that if I didn't keep them so busy, that at night they would be so dead tired and exhausted that I would have a crew of mental cases by the time I got the ship home.
A ghost ship with a skeleton crew, the Franklin made port on April 28th, 40 days after lying dead in the water.
The ship got to New York. She was in an extraordinarily, unbelievably cleaned up condition, and I didn't have a single cycle case on that ship when I got back. And I had probably the proudest, cockiest crew that any ship in any Navy ever had.
The citations read, "For self-sacrificing valor under the most perilous conditions, for leading and inspiring the crew, for conspicuous gallantry at the risk of his life, for courage in the highest tradition." So they came home, the most decorated ship and the most decorated crew in the history of the United States Navy. The war ended before the repaired Franklin could return to combat. Now she dies hard. It took 10 months to build her, 2 years to destroy her. The burner's torch accomplishes what Japanese bombers could not.
As this ship dies, it's like a part of me dying. I went every place this ship went, and I was on it when it was decommissioned. I love her, and I always will love her.
For those who have never been close to shipboard or mariners' lives, no one can realize the love that a person would have for a ship
never forget, after being hospitalized on Guam, I found that the ship was returning from Pearl Harbor to the United States. I begged the doctor to let me go. I begged him because I had to go back with this ship. This was my home, my motherland.
They say a ship has a heart. I believe it. Being back here now, I must say, it's rather a sad experience to know that it'll be the last time that I'll see the Franklin.
The performance of that crew, I think, is one of the really great things in the history of the United States Navy. Many of them at sea for the first time, many of them in combat for the first time, but the manner in which they performed, the way they supported each other, there were innumerable, incredible, and unknown acts of self-sacrifice and heroism on that ship. And then when the people live together and work together and train together and then finally have fight together and help to save each other in bad time, then they become a community and a family. They're shipmates. Once a shipmate, you've always been a shipmate, and that's what makes a ship go.
The ship is dead, but the heritage of the Franklin lives on. Dean Kincaid, one of the ship's company, remembers, in that terrible time, we were transformed into a living whole, utterly without bias, color consciousness, creed. In my lifetime, nothing will compare to those hours when everybody was his brother's keeper.